And we're live.
And we are live. Hello, everybody. This is Peter Palmiotti of Humanoid Studio. And this is episode 108 of Making Comics and Art. And today with me is the one and only Justin Gray.
Hello.
How you been doing?
Yeah. I'm good.
Cool.
How are you doing?
Good. Plugging away on my own comic retro. That's what this is. Page 19 of 28. So getting the inks done. We have somebody clapping in the chat. Thiago.
Yes,
Maybe.
he does colors for Spicy Pulp that we're doing right now. He's presently coloring the second half of a Lady Redbeard story that
Excellent.
I will be releasing on Kickstarter next month if all goes well.
Cool. Well, you got a Kickstarter right now that's live. Standing Still.
Yes, Stand Still.
Right behind
my fancy banner out.
Yep.
Instead of the glaring window that fills the room with light.
You want to tell people all about it?
Yeah, it's got about a week left. I'm only doing a 2-week campaign because the book is completely done. I have a bunch of copies printed in my basement, bagged and boarded, ready to go. And I figured I would do a 2-week, which is essentially cutting 2 weeks out of the wait time for people to get the books. So what I'm trying to do is 2 issues at a time. Each time we come back with more material. So this is issue 5 and 6, and all 6 issues are available through the Kickstarter. And it is a horror comic about what happens after one day. The majority of people in the world just stop moving. And the people that can move, what their lives are like and what they're having to deal with in the aftermath of that. I wanted to look at a story where there was real life problems that you would be presented with: animals, a lack of food, a lack of power, things like all the stuff that would break down without people keeping it running. A lot of the stuff would be dangerous. Power plants, gas plants, things like that would tend to overheat. Some will explode. If there's a fire, there's no one to put a fire out. So huge swaths of major cities are burning. And that some of that shows up in the later issues. But right now I'm focusing on 2 characters that we meet, obviously, in issue 1. And they get engaged and they go to bed happy, and they wake up in the morning and he wakes up and she's just standing still. And he doesn't know what's happened to her. And then he realizes it's not just her, it's the majority of the people that he's dealing with. So he has to come up with a plan on how to keep her alive and try and figure out what's happening to the world and if there's any way to reverse it. So that is what I have been doing with this particular book. There's a lot of it written. It's almost a year's worth of scripts are done. Hold on a second. Got some company coming over. You can finally have company after the real world pandemic.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
Yeah. That's it. It's a black and white horror comic. It's had a couple different artists. The first 2 issues are by James Broxton, and then Aminke Deflipon, I think is how you. I probably just butchered his last name. He did Justice League Dark, and he's done some Nightwing stuff for DC. And he did 3/4 of an issue. And then Branko Jovanovic is the artist moving forward. He just finished. He's probably finishing up right now as we're doing this issue 7. The art on that.
That's crazy. I mean, like, I know you've done a ton of stuff with my brother, but this is your current Kickstarter is your 15th, I believe.
I think so. I believe, yeah. We just finished Billy the Kid. People are getting their Billy the Kid rewards now. So this is. Let me just double check on that. I think it is. Again, the screen gets washed out when I pop up a window. So yeah, 15th. Yeah, you're right. Wow. Maybe 16 next month if everything goes to plan.
So how do you keep up that pace, man?
I have a lot of things going on. I mean, these things do take time, as you know. I mean, to production
Yeah.
alone, getting the art done, juggling multiple art teams has been something I've learned how to deal with much better than I did before. It's Jimmy. What's up, Jimmy?
No.
I don't know. Is there an echo on my?
I don't hear an echo.
Okay. I don't
He
hear you,
says
definitely.
it's on his end. Welcome, Jimmy.
That's all right.
Vincent. I'm sorry, I'm coming in half cocked.
No, we basically somebody's always working, and I try and line them. I try to get everything to come together as well as possible. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I don't have a set schedule, which works out. Every artist works at a different pace. So constantly having people working, it gets a little scary because they're getting paid, and I'm hoping that the money will be recouped on the Kickstarter, so that I can keep doing. It's essentially just kind of pushing the next Kickstarter along once one is done. But other than that, it's just keeping people busy and happy, and the schedule works out really well because sometimes, like I was working with an artist for this next Spicy Pulp issue, and he was only doing 8-page story, and he needs to go do a bigger gig, and I was like, that's fine, you can go do that. He needed a month or whatever, and I was like, go take the month and go get that gig, and then just come back and then wrap this one up. And artists like that. They like the flexibility of being able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. It stopped. It was on my end, Jimmy said. And
that might know.
Vincent said, where we can pick it up at?
Right now, if you're talking about Standstill, which is the banner behind me, that's on Kickstarter, and you can find that pretty easily. It's got about a week left for issues 5 and 6, but you can, hey, Todd, you guys can get all 6 during that Kickstarter. And then the Spicy Pulp books, if you go to my website, jvgray.com, which you can kind of see down there, I have some of the Spicy Pulp books on there. And then the next Kickstarter for issue 6 should be out hopefully at the end of next month, if everything goes well.
So you might as well just go through all your books and describe. So what's Spicy Pulp about? What people expect?
It's an anthology in the sense it's a bunch of different stories. I write the stories, and then different artists do obviously the artwork. And what I like to do, they're 60 to 64 page books, and they have one main story that's about half the book. It's about 30 pages, and it's told in 2 parts, and that's a complete story. And then there's either short stories at smaller page counts or shorter serialized stories. There's a short that runs through the series that lasts 3 chapters long. But normally it's like Lady Redbeard's a character, this pirate who starts out in the 1700s and discovers this alien artifact and is now able to jump through time and space. And so we're currently doing another 2-part story. She was the lead character from issue 1 and issue 2. And then I brought in a character called the Road Witch, which is, I was always fascinated by seeing the tragedy of, when you're driving on the highway, you see those crosses and flowers that they have on the side of the road where people have perished. And I kind of thought, especially where I live, there's a lot of South and Central American culture of Catholicism. So they have all the candles and very elaborate setups. And I thought, well, what if this was a sort of an entry point where you could summon something for either revenge or justice or whatever. So the idea being that if you go to one of these specific locations, you can summon the Road Witch, and then she'll aid you in whatever your mission or quest is. So these are all mature books too. There's a lot of nudity, there's a lot of swearing, there's a lot of inappropriate material because I don't have anyone telling me I can't do it. So, which is nice. Lots of cursing, lots of sex. Yep. What am I doing in the book that you cannot do? I showed God's penis in one of the issues. I'm pretty sure that's not going to fly in a mainstream book. I'm not positive, but that was kind of an off joke. It's kind of within the context of the character. The fact that the Road Witch is a lesbian and she keeps getting propositioned by things, or she keeps seeing things she doesn't want to see or have no interest in her. I just thought it was a funny beat. Like I said, there's a lot of sex. There's a lot of Dude Bro the Barbarian is a sort of sword and sorcery rom-com where the quote-unquote hero rescues a woman and then immediately demands sex as payment for it. The new talent on the books. These guys, we should bring this guy in. He's good. I work with so many different people, and I tend to gravitate towards people that not only do I like their style, but I'm comfortable working with them. I know that they're going to deliver. There's a lot of people. Right now I'm working with Roy Silveira, who did he's an animator from Brazil, and he had worked on Supertrans. I think it's Supertrans, which is an animated show that was on Netflix. And Fago was in here. I don't know. I have to ask him if I pronounce his name properly. But he's the colorist. He might still be around. I don't know if he's on watching us or not.
Right.
And Branko Jovanovic, who is working on that, is a combination of the art behind me is a combination of Jimmy Broxton did the top half with the logo, and the bottom half is Derek Robertson, who has done a few things people might recognize.
I love the logo and the little
it's a great logo.
Little figure inside it too. It's cool.
Yeah, that's one of the characters. That's actually the fiance when the one that's not moving when her future husband wakes up. And there's a bunch of people I've worked with. Good Spin FS. Yep. Yeah. So, and there's other people who sometimes I can't pronounce their names properly. Daniel Cavallo is doing a short in the next Spicy Pulp called Birth, and Antonio Brandao is doing a self-contained short story featuring a character called Strawberry Milk, who is kind of a combination if Lobo and Strawberry Shortcake had a kid and she was out in the universe pulling bounties. And that's kind of a fun one-off story. And I've got some Ali Garza cover art that he's been on me to show everyone, but I'm not going to show it till, I guess, the end of this month. I want to be closer to the Kickstarter for the next one so that people are excited to see. It's a gorgeous piece, and it's an homage to Viva Las Vegas.
Cool.
Elvis Presley, which is the Strawberry Milk thing is called Viva Space Vegas. So
Nice.
Cats keep opening the door.
That's funny. I have that problem. Oh, that's cool, man. I picked up the first issue of Billy the Kid, and eventually I'll get the rest of it. But I've worked with Barry the artist. You have on that book.
Mm-hmm.
Barry
Clean Jr.
Yeah, he's a wild man.
Yes, he is.
Incredible.
That book is doing. I never really know. Like sometimes I just do things, and I'm like, I just want to do it, so I do it, and I don't really think about either the repercussions or whether or not it's going to sell. And Billy the Kid was something that I wanted to do just for fun. And I initially envisioned it as like an animated short that would run like at midnight on some network. And there is a little bit of feedback from my mic. I can hear a little bit of an echo. Maybe I should move back farther. I'm getting a tremendous amount of feedback from everyone that's read through all 5 issues. And it's I don't want to say it's surprising, but it is kind of surprising because you think, oh, it's a talking rabbit who shoots fire guns. So I wasn't sure if that really was going to resonate with people the way that it resonated with me while I was writing it. And of course, Barry did his own thing in a lot of places because I've been using a completely different scripting model than I did when I was working for DC or Marvel or anybody like that.
Yeah, I mean, you set the rules and the pace, and You do it your way.
It is fun. It's like page count. I don't think about page count. I think about when I want the story beat to end. Sometimes that's 24, 26, 30. It just depends. And I don't really have to be beholden to that page count. And recently I was like, why am I making comics in exactly the same size that everyone, like the superhero mainstream comic size is? So I'm going to look at some different ideas on changing the presentation. I'd like to do more. I'd like to do less staple and more. I can't think of it now, but back.
Hardback?
Not hardback. Just the paperback, but it's not stapled. I can't believe I'm blanking on this.
I know what you mean now. Yeah.
Perfect bound. It's a perfect bound, right?
Yeah, it's like glued or whatever. Yeah. I noticed a couple of my friends are doing. Well, England has a different size, A1 or whatever it is. It's like a little bigger than a standard comic book size.
Right.
So that and even a friend in America, out in New York, is doing a bigger format, 9 by whatever. I mean, it's cool if it works with the project. It's like it's definitely it will stand out a little more than your average book.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like them to be able to transport better. I'd like not to be beholden to just specific sizes. I mean, obviously, I'd like to do some things. I'd like Spicy Pulp. I'd rather do as a giant sized volume, but it's it doesn't. It gets expensive, and the printing is almost half of everything. And Jimmy asks, "What is the most frustrating part of doing a Kickstarter?" The thing is, they're all different. It's amazing to me. And now this is 15 that I've done by myself, and they're all different. There's always something that pops up, and I go, I didn't expect that, or I think at one point, I think Billy the Kid didn't have a lot of digital. I was surprised. And there's some campaigns where there's a ton of digital, and some campaigns where there's much less. And when I did Arthur Blackfrost, I noticed that there was a much larger female readership coming in for that. That was the most amount of female backers I've had on any Kickstarter, which makes sense to me. Given the material and the style of artwork that Laurent Reese does. But the most frustrating part, I recently had to relinquish the distribution, like the fulfillment part. I've never done that before. It was very it came out great. And Aaron did a great job, but I was having a hard time not being in complete control of a Kickstarter the way that I normally am.
Right.
Frustrating parts are, for instance, Barry did he did 10 covers, pen and ink covers. And one of them just got mauled by the post office. And,
sucks.
I was smart enough to insure it, but it's still it's a drag for the person that wanted that cover. I feel bad for them. I don't know what the percentage of with Spicy Pulp. There's a huge percentage because shipping is the most frustrating thing since we're covering that part. The percentage of buyers that are digital is much higher on Spicy Pulp than anything else because there's a wider. I have more European and overseas backers on those books than I do on anything else. So I see that a higher percentage on that. And the interesting thing with percentages wise with Standstill is the conversion rate from people who are watching to people who are backing is about 34%, which is high in my experience. And it's great. I'm actually very excited about that. But definitely the fact that there's whole markets that are ridiculously overpriced on shipping that we can't develop inroads with that is very frustrating to me.
Right. Jimmy asked the important question.
I still no. I mean, I think I would. I think if I was in my 20s, I probably could have gotten on one of those shows just by proxy of being obnoxious. But I mean, I still cook more than I want to, but I haven't given up on my curiosity about doing a food truck, but I also have no interest in fact, that right during the pandemic, when I went out, I was looking at restaurant jobs to pick up some extra money, and I ended up going to Instacart instead, which was much more, not only more profitable, but a much better experience, and then having to go back into working in a kitchen, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I did a like a food truck. It was just like this guy starting it out, and we only did it for a little while.
Uh-huh.
But it was fun. It was like, I live in a small town out in Kentucky, and he's Mexican, and so it was a taco truck. But it was fun, just like, saying hi to the people that walked up and getting them what they want. And it's a different kind of,
isn't it too?
what's that?
It's like it's fast. Like you have a rush.
It's like, you blow through the people as they come by, and then you're waiting most of the time for the next one.
Right.
Yeah. Jimmy says, I have to head out for a few minutes, another time for sure. Okay, cool.
All right.
I asked him if he wanted to come on for a short while.
That was good. I'm going to see him at Terrificon at the end of the month.
There you go.
Connecticut.
You bring all your books when you go to conventions?
This is the first time. I've never had one of those before. I've never had my own stuff. It's usually like I would go with a box of comps, and I just kind of now I have multiple books in different styles. I made sure I'm going to print up a bunch of Arthur Blackfrost books just so I have something that's in case that there's kids or somebody who come by, because it's definitely not mature. Everything else I do is a mature rating. So like Stand Still is definitely mature in the themes, and there's again sex and violence and unfriendly animals. Do I find it sad I can make more work for Starbucks than in comics? I was making more money doing Instacart than I was doing comics. But yeah. I guess it depends. I mean, I don't know. My biggest thing is getting distribution, getting the books out into people's hands. Fortunately, Blue Juice Comics picked up Billy the Kid, so it's going to be in Diamond, I think, at the end of the month or the beginning of next month, and then in stores in October for the 5 months that comes out. So I'm excited about that. But it's distribution, and it's tough because I don't know how to get more books out to more people with this system the way that it is. I wish it was easier for retailers to order books, because if I could move 5,000 comics or 5,000 trades or whatever, then I'd be fine. Instead of kind of constantly chasing the carrot on the next project and the next project. I mean, I love doing it, and I love doing this now more than ever before. It's much more enjoyable than just handing off a script. It's been a really rough learning process over the last 5 years, but it's been worth it because I feel so much more of a proprietary and more in control of what I'm doing, right or wrong. It's my mistakes 90% of the time.
Yeah.
I kind of like that's my fault if I screw something up, even though it's agonizing. But at least I know I'm the one who caused the problem, and it wasn't anything else.
For those that don't know, we can go back a ways. As far as I know, your first experience in comics was Marvel Knights, but you tell me.
My first actual like being in comics was Marvel Knights for sure. I was trying for years. I was submitting concepts and stories, and I was trying to find artists. That didn't, that was a mixed bag of experiences. Definitely a lot of rejections. But it wasn't until I started talking to Jimmy and I started talking to Joe Quesada, and I met up with those guys and eventually ended up at Marvel Knights that I quickly understood that comics are not exactly what I thought they were on the outside, that they are a business, and that some of the same pitfalls or drawbacks from any business still apply to comics. But other than that, I mean, it was interning at Marvel Knights and learning how things worked at Marvel at the time, not necessarily how they were across the board in comics. But it was definitely different than it is now, and it was even 5 years ago when Warner Brothers, took that massive interest in DC and moved them out to Burbank and changed essentially from the Paul Levitt's model to becoming like both of the major superhero publishers are now very corporatized publishing houses as opposed to comic publishers.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, it was pretty much easy to just go up to the offices and say, "Oh, I just want to talk to the editors or whatever." And
Right.
Right. I haven't been there a while, but I'm sure it's like nowhere near. Last time I was up at Marvel, it's like, well, you need to have an appointment and blah blah blah. What?
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably even more than I remember than it was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, that is what it is, but there's different levels of comics, and I think it's interesting that there's more opportunities to make comics now outside of that system than there was ever before. I just wish that there was I even looked at the way that Amazon has a model for shipping stuff, and I thought, why can't they just open that up to everyone?
I know lots of people are looking for other options. More and more people are doing crowdfunders, and they're going through, just going directly to the fans, and that's well and fine. But yeah, you're right. Like, distribution is key to a stronger future for.
I will say though, I love direct to fans. And
right.
I would love nothing more than to be direct to retailers as much as possible, because I like that. I like that you're interacting with the people that want your material. They want to read your books. They want published. I mean, they want to buy your books. They want to sell your books. I think that there's something to be said for that, and it seems like that's what's happening with a lot of other things that aren't so ridiculously expensive to make, like films. But you look at what happened to the music industry, and I don't see any reason why there shouldn't be some kind of Bandcamp for comics. And as we know, I mean, Comixology has a great system for getting comics to people, but it's also, to be frank, they take half. And, all they're doing essentially is processing your files and hosting them. And then you're still paying a transaction fee on sales. But it would be nice. I move X amount of books through my website, and I know that Jimmy moves X amount of books through paperfilms.com. And I just think that, I would love nothing more than to run a Kickstarter and be able to, hit retailers across the country and be able to do a 5,000-6,000 print run, because you could get a really nice book and a good price down once you start doing that kind of volume. But right now you're doing print on demand, and you don't have that many options as far as volume goes.
Yeah. I've seen some Kickstarters where they do like retailer pledge level,
sure,
where they'll have 5 or 6 issues that they can just buy for cheaper if they're confirmed retailer.
Right.
Yeah.
I just don't think you need so much volume, because I have some friends who own shops, and they say, well, what is your per unit cost on this thing? And it just doesn't, you can't take 60% off that, because it's still not, it doesn't work for either side. Even if it's not like I would take a loss so that they could benefit from the book and get it out there. It's not even, it's a loss. There's just no way to make up some of that ground, especially with single issue models, which is why I don't kickstart each issue at a time. I have 50, this next Kickstarter that's running right now, you'll get 2 issues. It's about 52, 56 pages of material. Instead of, and that's why I made Spicy Pulp a bigger book. That's why I look at doing things at a higher page count, because it has to be worth it to the people that are going to back the book and to get something substantial, which is, it's important.
A lot of small publishers make their dimes on merchandise. Do you have any merchandise with your books?
I can do merchandise, but it ends up being a third-party vendor. It's not like I would essentially be using someone's T-shirt website to do T-shirts, or printing. Either way, I can do some of that stuff. I don't like to do it with the Kickstarters because I shipped a comic that had original art on it and it got mauled. So things like mugs and other things that can break easily, I just don't trust. It's been pretty bad since right before COVID. I think I noticed more and more that even when I see guys drop packages off here, they like drop the box. It's a 100-pound box of comics and they drop it like they just carried it up a mountain.
Yeah.
I open it up and I'm like, guys, come on.
I know, like, shipping with the regular post office has gone up price-wise, and
every year, every January it goes up.
Yeah, and because of COVID, just everything's been super delayed. I ordered a package from England like over a month ago. I'm still waiting on it.
Yeah, I had people, overseas people with the Kickstarter say, I don't know where it is, and then I'll look it up, and it at one point it was supposed to go to Norway, I think, and it did like 3 rounds in Queens, in Jamaica, Queens, and I was like, wait.
Wow.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. It just makes sense. That's why we did Billy the Kid as 5 issues. Like, we did issue 1, and then we're like, you know what, we can't sit here and try and raise money to fund production on the book each issue at a time. So it just doesn't. It's not fair to anyone. It's not fair to anyone back in the book. You should just blow right through it too quickly, and then you wait. And if you're not, that's why I like Pete, when you said having so many things going on, or how do you have that? You have to, because if you have a certain window of time in which you're doing a book, especially on Kickstarter or anything. Remember when you would buy a number 1 issue of something and then you wouldn't see a number 2 issue.
Yeah.
Then just like it's back a year later with a new number 1 issue. And I understand why they did it that way, but that doesn't do anything for the people who like the books or want to read them. So you constantly have to keep that window rolling along so that they know they're not going to have to wait too long, which was something I learned the hard way. Standstill was delayed for 2 years, maybe more, I think. And I just don't want to do that to people. I want them to be able to have some kind of consistent basis. Obviously they're not going to expect, and I don't necessarily want to subscribe to the monthly model for everything, especially my own stuff. If it's going through distribution channels for mainstream, for retail, then fine. It is what it is. But I think there's different ways to do things, and I'm constantly trying to come up with a better way for everybody. Well, that's a win-win for everybody.
Right.
I'm rambling. I do stream of consciousness. I can get thrown off very easily.
No worries. There's no test here.
No, that's good. I already forgot.
So yeah, what got you into comics in the first place? Like, did you grow up reading comics? Did you just?
I did.
Figure, yeah.
I think I can vaguely remember. I think it'd be like garage sales or whatever. Like you'd see something, or somebody would just be like, here's a comic. It'd be like Hot Stuff or Casper, and then it would be Spider-Man, and then from there it just kind of snowballed into. And I go in and out of it, or I have. I haven't been all that interested in reading superhero stuff for quite some time, but I definitely have been reading other stuff like Something's Killing the Children, and I can't. I was just reading Azzarello's book, the one with magic. I can't. Faithless, I think it is.
Yeah.
I try. I go in and out. I didn't read for. I've been very focused on what I'm doing, and I kind of exist in a bubble a lot of the time. So I'm like, people say, "Are you reading this? You're reading that." I'm not always doing that. I'm so concentrated on what I'm doing. Because it takes up X amount of time, and then when I'm not doing this, I have to be doing all the other things I'm supposed to be doing as a responsible adult, and parent and stuff. So I kind of fall behind on trends and other things. So every once in a while, I pop in and I look at things very objectively. I'm not immersed. Not being immersed in things helps me look at things in a way of structurally or the framework or trends, I guess, or whatever, that I find more interesting to me, because I'm not like beholden to a fandom. I don't usually get mad about spoilers because I don't pay attention to most stuff. So I started in comics as a kid, and then I dropped out for a bit in high school, and then I went back to them in college. And then somehow I found myself working in them, and like I said, it was different. It took me probably a day and a half to realize that comics were not like what I thought they were, or Stan lied to us. They're not having these great big parties in the bullpens, and all these famous artists not running around dueling on everything. It's business, and you have to treat it as such. I think that's something that I don't know if they teach it, but they definitely should teach the business end of comics to everyone that even thinks that they want to work creatively.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a specific course out there for that, but definitely is a lot more individual creators talking about their process and everything that goes into making comics, which business is definitely a part of, across YouTube and on Facebook and everywhere else. Like, everybody has more of a voice now, as opposed to like when we were starting out back when, and there was no internet, there was no conventions where it but
you were not accessible like you are now to people.
Yeah.
And you can't, your branding was determined differently than it is now, which is both a positive and a negative. I think sometimes people brand themselves in weird ways or hurt themselves by not understanding that they are the brand that they are. Like I always say, I'm willing to talk about things that I've done in the past in terms of working on a mainstream superhero characters and stuff, which I enjoyed. It's a mixed bag. Some things I had a great time, some things I didn't enjoy so much. But I'm not in the business of that. I'm in the me business. And I know that on one hand, that can probably sound selfish, but on the other hand, the other side isn't ever taking care of anybody long term. So you have to be in the you business regardless. I mean, if it was anything that you were doing, creative or otherwise, you're in the you business, because if you're working for corporations, you have an expiration date. It just happens. I was thinking, there's a lot of discussion about ageism, and I was laughing because I was so happy to see that Rhea Perlman has had a reoccurring role on the Bad Batch Star Wars thing, whatever. And she's clearly not a spring chicken, but she's getting work, and I think that's important. But you have an expiration date with things, especially with comics. Whether it's a style that you have that goes out of style, or they just decide that that's not trendy or hot anymore, or whatever. And it doesn't diminish the skill of the artist, which is what I think more should get into. If they're an older creator who still has their chops, but they're not getting work, then how could you not turn to Kickstarter? Because there is an audience built in there for you. There are people who love your work and who are disappointed not seeing it anymore, and not all of them are going to be disappointed they're not seeing you do it on Captain America.
Right. Yeah.
Which is what it is. I get it. You end up becoming a sort of custodian for a period of time for a character, and then you add your contribution to the mythology, and it just goes on. Then it's time for someone else to go do it, which is fine. I just think that you have to be in the you business, because at some point you're not going to be on that anymore, and you're still going to want to do what you love to do.
Yeah. It's great working for the big two, or even some of the bigger independent publishers. But you're right. Like, you have to promote you and whatever you're working on. The big companies may or may not choose to advertise your books. So you have to push them, which is good experience, because then when you're doing your own books, you have that knowledge under your belt.
Right. Well, I mean, working with your brother, obviously, he, no matter what it is, he's promoting it. There's no line that he draws that says I'm not going to promote something because I'm working for hire as opposed to working for him, himself. So that was something I learned. I have to admit, I learned a tremendous amount from Jimmy because I went naive and kind of clueless wandering into it, and then his background in advertising gave him a different perspective. So, and I think I understand why. I mean, it's easier once you're working for one of those publishers. It's easier
Yeah.
because you don't have to do all the other stuff that it takes to get from your brain to the page to the store. So for a lot of people, I think that's, and I don't blame them. It's much easier. It's an easier path. It's a check. It's a steady thing. Um, but I was surprised at how much I didn't know and how much I enjoyed learning and then doing the things I didn't know how to do before, and how much respect I have for people doing the jobs that I had nothing to do with. That was, essentially going through an editor instead of me talking to them. And sometimes it could be iffy. Sometimes I definitely, we're all, and I always say this about myself first. I know I'm a little off. Sometimes I think I'm crazy for doing this stuff. But you have to be able to manage the other part of your creativity that can sometimes get in your way. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemy, and editors kind of help people filter through that. But when you do it yourself and you're interacting, there's definitely a level of, we're in this together, and you need some help from me or I need some help from you. The lines of communication have to be wide open all the time, and you don't always get that. I mean, I remember we had one editor, and he said, "You don't talk to the artist, I talk to the artist." And I said, "I don't understand. Like, there's not. I know I still don't really fully understand what that was, outside of maybe there was some concern that we were going to subvert some authority or process, which I don't really think, because like when we worked on Jonah Hex, we had so many different editors, and they had so many different styles, and they had so many different levels of hands-on or hands-off. It was interesting. For the most part, everybody wanted that book because they didn't have to work as hard as they did on the other books, because we were writing 4 or 5 scripts in advance. We had 4 or 5 different artists working on those, so there was never any danger of missing a deadline. And that experience in itself informed how I've been doing things with Kickstarter tremendously. And like you said, again, it goes back to how am I rolling out so many different Kickstarters across the year. And it's because I learned how to multitask and how to source out different things across multiple people, which is one of the things I like. You don't hear people talk about in comics, but I think it's something that some of us just love doing, or
Right.
they wouldn't be doing them, I guess.
What's your methods of communicating with your crew, like on each book? Like, to use phone or just chat messenger? Like,
It's a lot of chat messenger. I mean, if I have to
yeah,
get on the phone, I have gotten on the phone. Like sometimes, because I work with overseas artists that English isn't their first language. Sometimes I have to explain a concept differently, and it helps me in having to explain something to someone whose first language is not English. And I realize that, like, okay, there are certain things in my head that I'm seeing that I'm not conveying to this person effectively enough. And so by doing that, it helps me look at the story better. So sometimes, actually all the time now, I go back and I give scripts more so as chunks of information, which sometimes if there's a specific exchange or dialogue or pacing I want to do with the characters, then I'll do a traditional chunk of script in the middle of this. But in the communication is that, I mean, I instant message people all the time. I had a long conversation yesterday with Rui about what I'd like us to do next as a project after he finishes doing this Lady Redbeard story, which I think he only has about 4 or 5 pages left at most. And, we were discussing like multiple projects. We had different things we wanted to do. And this thing popped into my head like 2 days ago, and I wrote the whole script in a day and a half or I mean, what roughly translates to about 6 hours. And I was like, I think I want to do this next. And because it takes, time to draw it, we have to decide. And there's only so many projects I can string along between Kickstarters. So it's either text and sometimes it's phone, but mostly it's texting, and sometimes it's just email. And then I like to let people do their thing. Like I always feel like you should, if you're going to work with someone or hire someone to do a job, you're hiring them because this is what you want this thing to be, and that they have either the skill or the style or whatever it is that suits that project. I never really understood this sort of thing of like taking hot artist, hot writer, and putting them on a character that maybe none of them like, or just because it's a formula and you think, it's like put two stars in a movie together and maybe they don't have chemistry or maybe they do or whatever. But as opposed to looking at someone's artwork and saying, oh, I think that they would do a great job at this kind of story. Or even for now, I have the freedom of saying, I love this person's artwork. And looking at their artwork is inspiring me to tell this kind of story. So that happens as well. And then just being able to talk to people and being able to communicate as much as possible. And then I let them, they do their thing. Just go create. And if you have ideas, if you have concepts you want to come to me with, then let's talk about it. And I mean, I'm never going to say, oh, please don't improve this. Like, don't make this better. This is perfect the way it is. That's not why you work with people. That's not why you collaborate. And comics is collaboration. It's not dictation. I mean, you may have certain things hard fast in your mind that you want to see. And I see this a lot. Like I'll see it on the Facebook pages with people who are like, I want an artist who draws like Jim Lee for $20 a page.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to happen. Like, it's unfair to everyone. Like, you're being unrealistic on every level. Or that they're like, I hear artists sometimes say that, they're in a situation or it's a job. We never talk about the people, it's the job. And this particular job was to do this, and yet there was no freedom. There was no room to breathe. It's like, if you want to do assembly line stuff, that's not really what I want to do. That's not what I want from that. But I want, the more excited that someone is to work on something, the better the product's going to be, the better the read is going to be. And it's better for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about quality of product.
Yeah. And enjoying what you're doing. I mean, it's comics. I mean, you don't go into comics because you want to spend your day digging holes on the side of the highway. It's just like in the blazing sun. Like, you do it. There has to be some measure of joy that you get out of being able to make a living doing artwork or writing or coloring or painting or whatever.
Yeah. I always tell people, like, yes, it's incredibly fun to work on comics, but anything you want to do in life eventually is work. So you just have to have the discipline and habits to keep at it when you're not feeling it.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I know they're like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. It's not true. I mean, it sounds nice, but some days it's work. Some days you're like, I mean, we're going from, something that I wrote in 2017 is now something I have to make sure it's 100% bulletproof for a publisher. That's work. That's not like, because my brain is like, I've seen this so many times in the last 5 years that my brain just fills in all the gaps where I need to be focusing on, weaknesses or punctuation or anything like that. So that, that's work. And sometimes you have to, you'll get artwork that doesn't match the script. And sometimes you can either ask the artist to fix the artwork or you can go in and work around it. For me, it's been more fun to just give people direction and then not give them cinematic camera, like not just be behind the camera all the time with them.
Right.
So then I've gone in and written over the artwork so many times now in the last 5 years. I don't even process it that way. It's because it's actually so much more organic and fun because I rediscover different things, or the artist will draw something in a way that I didn't envision at first. And then it'll change the mood or the setting of the panel or the dialogue and that stuff. I find that to be a lot of fun. And you could never do that doing something like a mainstream superhero book, because you need to have your 6-month outline, and you have to stick to that 6-month outline because everyone who does everything else, and there's characters crossing over, so people have to know exactly what's happening in the books. So that was one thing I didn't really enjoy as much, because it felt, that's when it starts feeling more like work and more like a factory setting than it does a creative one. So as much as I try and make it fun for the artist, I also try and make it fun for me, because I think that ultimately it translates to someone reading the book having more fun with their experience.
Yeah, definitely. So we're about 50 minutes. You want to share your Kickstarter page? People can check out the what pages and covers, and
I'm going to get washed out here once I bring up this bright white screen.
Rewinds and all that. But I'll make it big, so I'll try to.
Your screen. That would be. Can you see that?
Nothing yet. Usually comes up as another window.
Gotcha. All right.
Here we go.
Right. Oh, it went up. We got a couple more backers here in the, I guess, during the discussion.
Yeah, cool. Excellent.
This is a run standstill for 2 weeks, I mentioned earlier, because 2 weeks, then you still have to wait for 2 weeks for all the funding to clear. So then nothing, it's like you're sort of in this holding pattern. So it ends up being a month and a half that you do a Kickstarter.
Right.
So this way I do it, and it's just a month of a Kickstarter. And we're doing great. We surpassed our goal we were funded on day one and started surpassing our goal at that point. And everything extra here is what keeps Branko drawing. The next thing, like I said, he just finished, or he is going to finish 7, probably by Monday. And then we'll be on to the next batch to 12. And then I will collect these as a trade paperback, so that, because it becomes a lot when you start doing individual issues across, 400 or 500 people. It just becomes more laborious, and it becomes more expensive for everyone, and the shipping. So it's nice to do trade paperbacks, and these are going to be really nice quality trade paperbacks too. So here's the cover 5, and this is really at this point, starting with issue 4. It's been just Branko and I doing everything. Like I'll do the color on the cover, and obviously it's not very challenging to do a single color, but it started with Broxton doing 1 and 2. Those were the covers, and so we went. I just basically continued that through the process. I did help design this one for 6 because I wanted a specific feeling for this cover to relate to the rest of the story. There's a lot of animals. There's a lot of animals in this book because there's no one around to deal with things like animal control or rabies, so there's packs of roving dogs, wolves, bears, lions. It's just nuts. And the thing I liked about this was it goes back to being almost the Stone Age for everyone, because the technology is not working. Yes, we still have some gas powered things, and we still have some weapons. And because there's so few people, there are a lot of resources, but there's also less control over things like nature. And I kept thinking about, we have all the weather that happens now. Imagine there's only a couple 100,000 people. Like, what are they going to do when there's forest fires that take down half of California, or mudslides, or hurricanes and tornadoes and everything else, when there's no people either to keep track of it? So these weather phenomenon, for most people, most of us don't walk around life looking at the air or feeling humidity and going, oh, I think there's a storm coming. So I thought that was really interesting as an element to set instead of a fictional thing. Like, you watch zombie movies and in the apocalypse movies, and they don't really deal with a lot of that stuff. One, I guess, is budget, but another is that they're more concentrated on, you can have a threat of, we know that the zombies are a threat all the time. This
Right.
campaign, like the other campaigns, there's silver foil covers like these, and then there's paper covers, which are printed on a specific kind of color paper, and they're beautiful. Um, and it's all black and white, which helps keeps the cost down, and it looks great. You know, you don't have to. It has a different kind of feel to it, and Branco is obviously drawing a tremendous amount of cinematic artwork is
Yeah, it's
happening.
great.
And these are Am and K pages mixed in from issue 4. There's a lot of inappropriate for children stuff in here. In fact, I have this on Comixology, and it bounced back. It had to be like more than an R rating just because of this. I imagine this panel is one of the culprits right here. But yeah, I mean, this is an adult comic for sure, and this is Branco's artwork again, and this is Derek Robertson, and this is John Brolia's artwork.
Yep.
And I have like a handy dandy survival guide, which was based on something that would come to my house every year because I live near a nuclear power plant. So they give you this great big pamphlet book thing that, you know, what you're supposed to do if the nuclear plant melts down, which is, you know, that's great. Then they finally closed it this past April. So it's no longer an active power plant.
Not really.
And then we have some digital, you can pick up the sex and violence books. The first 2 that Jimmy and I did, and then we added, you know, Patrick Wedge is in this one with Lee Ferguson doing artwork. I mean, I've known those guys forever.
Awesome.
So those are on here. And yeah, the campaign is doing great, and there's only a week left. So it cuts down on how long you have to wait for the issues. These are obviously done. And I have 200 each of the regular covers for 5 and 6 that are sitting in my basement, bagged and boarded, ready to go. And that is what that is all about.
Yeah. I got the link. I put the Kickstarter link, you know, below the video and video description box, as well as your website and your sort of comic book Instagram. So people can go check that out and follow you around. And
my regular Instagram is a lot of pictures of my pets, so I don't think that's going to thrill everyone. Yeah. So, and then the website is here. Yes, thank you. They really jump off more so than I would have. I wouldn't have come up with that, but Broxton has a great sense of design, and was just sort of taking on that aesthetic as we move forward with the book. This is Spicy Pulp. There's Lady Redbeard. This is from the newest issue 5. And that's Antonio Brandao and Sean Forney did the colors on this.
Cool.
These guys are great. And so these are available on my website, or like I said, the next Kickstarter should be next month. And you can get all the issues with that. Arthur Blackfrost is this it's now 76 pages. I messed around with it and had it re-lettered because I didn't like the lettering on it previously. It just wasn't my best effort. So this is all new, and this is with the artist Laurent Reese, who is incredibly talented. And it's a story of a boy whose whole family has been cursed for at least 300 years. And they're not really sure why they're cursed, and their lives have been miserable, and he decides that he's going to finally break the curse. And while it's all ages in the sense that it's not like the other books where there's sex, violence, and everything else. It's not written specifically for kids, but kids can read it. I should say that. All right, Rod. Todd, take care.
Yeah, Todd. Everybody showed up today. It was great. Yeah, it's a beautiful cover. I like that.
Yeah, it's real nice. And it's just the whole book looks like that. I don't know if I have any more imagery in here. I think I do. I just have. Yep. There's a paperback and there's digital, but there's more artwork in here.
Oh, okay. Cool. Wow.
And there's witches and sea monsters and mermaids and all kinds of fun stuff. Oh, look, there's a little video in here. But yeah, so that stuff's on the website if you're interested in, or anyone watching is interested in. Spicy Pulp is for adults for sure. There's a lot of nudity. This is issue 5. They get thrown into space prison because 17th century pirates should get thrown into space prison. And then there's the Road Witch, and this is the first Ali Garza cover for Road Witch. And Branko did the artwork for Road Witch, I should say that. That's the first time we worked together. And it's just nonstop action and craziness. You can see there's decapitations and yokai ghost bikers from Japan that drove across the Pacific Ocean. And like, these are the kind of, like, anything goes in these books. Like, I don't put any restrictions on myself in terms of storyline.
Right.
So literally anything can happen. Then there's even an anime inspired character in here called Mecha Monroe that lives in the desert junkyard. And like Lady Redbeard is like I said, she ends up being time traveling, but they also are on this floating city, and they discover that there's a manga robot stuck inside the city too, that all of a sudden becomes part of the crew and is a very interesting character who has a pretty big part in Spicy Pulp 6, which is following after this story. And this is Rui's artwork again, and Fago, who was in here earlier, did the color. And this is Diego Guerrera did the first Lady Redbeard story. I wanted it to have a sort of Manara feel to it. And when I saw his artwork, I was like, we got to work together on this thing. It's going to look beautiful. And it does. And so he did the first Lady Redbeard story, which is in issue 1 and issue 2, or there's a trade for both of these that collects all the material from 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 in these trade paperbacks.
Excellent.
Yeah. So that is fun.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Follow the links and check out the projects and pick up a bunch of issues. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to mention before we go?
Not until we hang up, then I'll probably be like, oh, I should have said that. But no, I don't. Billy the Kit's going to be in stores in October. And I know you can, if you didn't follow the Kickstarter, or if you didn't see anything to do with that, I probably should just pop that up real quick.
Sure, yeah.
Just because from the last Kickstarter, people can see. It's a beautiful book, and it's just crazy stuff. I feel like I've been gravitating towards crazy stuff pretty much all the time now.
Crazy sells.
It's just so much fun because there's no restriction on it. So again, I'm gravitating towards these kinds of stories where anything can happen. So it becomes more exciting to wake up one morning and be like, what if this happens in the story? And there's no reason for it not to.
Right.
You can see this. Yeah, this is a pinup that was stretch goal with C. Raymond did the artwork on this. And then we got picked up about halfway through the thing by Blue Juice Comics. So they offered some stretch goals, which are great. Everybody got a trade paperback of the Accelerators, which was nice. And then here's Barry's artwork. And I'm pretty sure Slamet Mugiono colored this, who did all the coloring on 1 through 5, with the exception of, we did a teaser comic that was essentially just kind of like a selling tool. And then but we just kind of ran away with the story, or the story ran away with us. The story is very simple. I wanted to do a Western, but I didn't want to redo Jonah Hex. I didn't want to go back and do the same kind of Western before. So I thought the lead character is a rabbit, and his entire family is killed by a tornado god. And he has no ability whatsoever to fight anything, and decides to go on this journey to avenge his family and figure out a way to kill the tornado god that wiped out. I mean, it wasn't just mom and dad and the kids. He wiped out the entire clan, the whole family, cousins, nephews, uncles, everybody dead. So it's this struggle, and he's learning from this goat how to chop down trees with a bamboo rod. There's a lot of cursing in this. There's a lot of blood in it. There's no sex because I can't get behind that. animal thing. But there's witches and there's lots of gore and lots of fun stuff. And there's comedy in there. And one of the things that I most like about Billy the Kid is he is this sympathetic character who absolutely refuses to give up, even when everyone else would be like, all right, I can't go on. He just keeps getting up. It's sort of like that, the boxer that keeps getting knocked down and they're too stupid not to get back up again. And he just keeps getting back up again. And to the point where it's almost comical and heartwarming as a combination. So the 5 covers, and this campaign exceeded my expectations. I really didn't know what we were going to get from this. As much as we love doing it, I didn't know if it was going to translate to anyone else loving it. But these were all the covers for the 5 issues, the regular covers. Then we had some variant covers that were available. And these are mostly Barry's artwork, except for this one, which is Antonio Brandao. And Slamet did the colors on all these. And we did a sketch cover, which is one, again, that post office destroyed one of these. I'm very bummed out about that. So yeah, I mean, this is the stuff I've been doing since I stopped working for DC mainstream superhero stuff, and I've been having some of the most fun. I mean, there's definitely times where I had a great time working on stuff like Jonah Hex and Hawkman and Power Girl. This has been a real interesting journey doing stuff this way.
Now you're exclusively doing this through Kickstarter only. Like, have you considered like Indiegogo or? I
haven't used Indiegogo because I've spent so much time cultivating Kickstarter.
Right.
I feel like people know how to get to it. There's no learning curve. Like I don't want to ask people to jump over back and forth. I mean, I'm sure that some wouldn't have a problem with it, but I just feel like I have a system. I understand how Kickstarter works. And I just, and we were fortunate enough that this got, this got the attention of a publisher, and maybe some of the other stuff will. But my main thing has just been to keep creating, and letting everything else sort itself out.
Right. So last question. What advice would you have for any wannabe writer or comic creator that you found helpful along the way?
I think it goes back to being in the U business. There's all different things that are involved. Like, don't be a jerk. Remember that comics is a small industry. So if you say something to someone, it can sometimes get away from you, or your behavior dictates. Being professional means a lot, whether it's to other creators, to editors, to people who do the hiring. The more professional you are, the better it is for everyone, including yourself.
Right.
But it's a business, and it's you are in the business of you. As much as you might love, and as much as I might love these characters, for the majority of people, there's a timeline on everything, and so being smart and pacing yourself out and understanding that you have to take care of yourself first and foremost as you're going down this journey of what you want from comics, and and you got to know what you want too. You can't just say, whatever happens. Like, you have to have a set goal. And for me, it was just, I say this because all I wanted to do was break in, but I didn't really know what I was going to do when I got in there. And having a plan is better. Like, cause I went backwards. I was able to get into mainstream comics without doing a lot of indie work. And now I'm having more fun than ever doing it this way.
Right.
So, I don't know how helpful that is, but yeah.
No, all information is helpful. It's like, I know a lot of people don't consider a lot of things involved. They just thinking about the creative aspect of it, and that's well and good initially, but yeah, you eventually have to see it as a business, as a whole, and get along with people and work things out and make mistakes and
I made all of them, I think. I can't imagine there isn't one I haven't made. Oh my god, some of which I can take back.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so it's great to see you again.
I know it's been a long time, right?
Yeah. You know, um, but like hopefully, with the conventions opening up again, we'll see each other in person.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like to actually, now that I can actually do stuff at conventions instead of, I don't know what I did before, but yeah. I mean, hopefully, yeah, for sure.
All right, so everybody go check out his projects and his website and go pledge. And I'll see you again soon.
All right,
Probably
cool.
Tuesday, Wednesday. But and yeah, Justin, have a great day, everybody.
Great
Keep making
Sunday.
comics. Yeah. All right, let me hit the button.